everybody. Welcome to week 3, the age of exploration. So, last week we talked about the Renaissance and the art and how people are starting to be more creative again. People are starting to wonder and ask questions and look for answers in other places than, okay, I just got to survive. And the age of exploration goes right along with that. And it overlaps a little bit, it extends some others, but it's all about exploring and wondering what's next and where we're going and what we're doing. And with that, let's talk about the beginnings. Because what drives innovation? What makes people look for new things, new thought processes, um, new trade routes, new innovations? Well, it's money. Let's be real. Everyone at any time is going to be looking at how can I make money? How can I make more money? How can I make money easier? All that stuff is what drove the age of exploration because the Mongol Empire was shifting. They had the blockade, they had that control of the Silk Road. Right, the Silk Road was a huge economy boost, and it was beautiful for the trade when the Mongols were allowing it. But since it was shifting, it did not become very safe to travel across Asia, so like through land, for that trade. So how do you avoid the Mongols? Well, you go to water. The water routes, it boosted the economy. The water routes were the ones that provided new life to these civilizations in Europe. But they couldn't be done without the improvements. So ships were now sturdier. They could travel farther. They could take more of a beating. They can open up to the bigger ocean, not just the Mediterranean Sea, not just the nearby seas, not just the little parts of the ocean, but actually open water. They could safely do that. They had larger ships. So now more cargo, more supplies, making it worthwhile to make those trips, to make that expedition where they might not have thought so earlier on when it was a lot less. These larger ships were improved so much that smaller crews were actually needed. So that means less mouths to feed, less food that they needed to bring. So it was, in a way, a cheaper or to cut some costs to going. And the good news, we're no longer randomly guessing. We are looking at the compass. All right, now that's north, south, east, west. We have a better heading on where we're going, allowing us to go further away from land, allowing us to go further away from markers that we normally look for. And probably the biggest thing, because like I said, money drives everything, the Catholic Church. They were promoting that we got to go out there. One, because they could make more money, but two, is to get the message out. Their missionaries needed to go out to the world and spread their word and promote their thought processes. And it was thanks to the Catholic Church and the Pope that split the world in two, Spain and Portugal. Now, Spain and Portugal were smart. They're the ones who took this on first. English, French, Dutch, the other ones that we see later on were playing catch up. So the line of demarcation. So this, the dotted line, was with Pope Alexander VI. But through the treaties, you can see this is how they agreed to split the world. Spain getting everything to the west or the left side, so the Americas. Portugal getting everything to the east. Now, at the time, Africa was still to be explored, more of the islands over in the Pacific, Australia. There was a lot of stuff there too. So it wasn't just when we say New World, we think of the Americas. So it wasn't like Portugal got ripped off. They were making a decent agreement with it. Now, of course, You can see Portugal's little Brazil right there, just over that line, allowing them to get a foothold in the Americas. But Portugal was okay with the alignment, so to speak. They might have had their differences, they might have had their arguments, but that line split it. So the west was for Spain, the east for Portugal, and the rest of the countries had to play catch up. What the treaty that made that official was the Treaty of Tordesillas. And of course, like I said, I probably butchered that hard. But this treaty in 1494 is what led to that exploration. The British, French, Dutch joined a couple years later in 95, or a year later in years following in 1495. Like I said, it split the world in half, pole to pole, 100 miles west of the Cape Verde Islands. So if we go back a slide, you can see Cape Verde right there. So they were measuring from that point. And probably to that point, that was where that most known was. Because you remember, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. So now we learned about this half. And I say we as in Europeans. And they learned about this half opening up to a lot more exploration. Brazil barely makes it, like I said. West goes to Spain. People already there, they ignored them. So yes, in recent years, the ideas of discovery have changed because it used to, for centuries, Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas. Well, people were already there. How can you discover it and all that? So it ignored them. The stuff that they did to the natives, not pleasant. Now, were they doing that everywhere? And was that kind of the MO at the time, was take over the area, settle your grounds, make sure you survive? It was very, very different than our lives today. So we're kind of gonna, what I'm asking is that we take away judgment of right or wrong, moral, immoral, because you can have those arguments and most people are going to probably say the things they did were not nice at all. But I'm looking at the impressiveness, the discovery, as in European point of view. How did Spain, Portugal, Great Britain see the world? They didn't know about the other side. They were ready to ignore anyone who was there and push forward. But this was a brand new discovery for those people. And that's what made this historic. Now, of course, we can argue that earlier people had made the journey and discovered it for Europe a long time before Christopher Columbus. You have the natives that were already there, so they already discovered and were making a life for it. So if I say discovery, I mean discovery for Europe at this time. Hopefully we all count that as fair and want to look at the history of it. Because Christopher Columbus, his journey, while, like I said, reputation probably not that good, but his journey was pretty impressive. Because to travel across the Atlantic like he did wasn't done. Like I said, the Vikings and Carthage were the ones who kind of sailed a little further north and over. But Columbus went through. And so he was Italian. He changed up the views. He was trying to promote his ideas, but no one was really listening in Italy. So he kind of expanded. And so that's why he eventually landed for Spain. But with the land roads becoming dangerous, it was Columbus who started that argument of let's seawards, let's go west, because people were trying to sail south around Africa, but it's not always safe in those waters. Not always safe to do that. So he's like, well, the globe's round. So if I go far enough west, I'll pop up east and I can trade with Asia there because Asia had the spices, the porcelain, and many, many goods that Europeans wanted. It would have made whatever country who solidified that route incredibly rich, and they were very happy about that. So he promoted the idea to Portugal and England. And at that point, they're like, that doesn't make sense to us. They were kind of thinking, okay, we see that point, but no, we don't want to go that route. It wouldn't be worth it. It's too much time. We don't know what's out there, type of thing. It was not for them. So he goes to Spain and he presents it to the king and queen, and they're like, all right, let's do it. Because the king and queen of Spain, as well as Christopher Columbus, wanted fame and fortune. They both, like, the interested parties had that same idea of, oh, this would be like, this could be huge for Spain. If it works, oh my goodness. And the king and queen, of course, take less of the actual risk and more of the financial risk, but they're like, let's do it. And because they both wanted fame and fortune, they made a contract where Columbus got to keep 10% of his findings. One of the reasons why he probably was so brutal to the natives when he found them. Because if he is expected, or if he's being paid by what he brings back, he needs to find as much as possible to make him rich. So you can see his motivation, his why, even though the means and the ends weren't really that nice. And the biggest thing there is he did not find much on his voyages. And he did not realize he was not in the Indies. He really thought he was a failure when he died. In 1506, when he died, he had really no idea that he refound, discovered for Europe a whole new area. So when he died, he was, I'm a failure. You can see his ships with the Spanish crosses on it. They were the ones who made the journey back and forth. He made multiple journeys, 1492, 1493, 1498, and 1502. You can see that in that last little journey down there, he does, and plus in 1498 too, he does discover South America as well. So there's that little debate in history when we go discover for Europe. Was it Columbus or was it somebody else? But we can see there at the time, he did brush up against that coast. So his legacy is enslaving populations, murdering many, many people. But on the bright side, or on the other side of the coin, part of his legacy is kicking off this sailing idea. The world today would not look like it did if Christopher Columbus didn't sail the ocean blue when he did. So there is that other side of it. Like I said, his legacy has dropped quite a bit because of the things he did. Like I said, we're not looking at the morality, we're looking at the history of it. And at the time, a lot of people, a lot of things were in that, okay, look out for self, conquer back and forth. But he did kick off this whole age of exploration and promote the ideas of go west to go east. Part of the exploration route was Amerigo Vespucci. Now, the reason why I added him here, because he wasn't a major explorer, is he's the one where the Americas get their name from. He lived from 1454 to 1512, and he grew up in the Medici family. Now, just by that fact, he was well off because they're the ones who promoted the Renaissance. The Medici family had that money, had that bank, had those funds, and he became a part of that bank. He became a part of that family, so to speak, in the sense that he became wealthy. And he wasn't happy just sitting there. He wanted to explore. He had those like, ooh, what's out there? He was very interested in the world, and he sailed to the New World as a navigator. So he wasn't captain, he wasn't fully in charge, but he was navigator, reading the maps because he had a great education leading him to that. In 1501 to 1502, his voyage, he's the one who realized that they were not in the West Indies. Those voyages were the ones where they realized this land that Columbus rediscovered or discovered for Europe was not what he was saying it was. It was not the West Indies. And so the belief that Vespucci discovered South America is wrong. So when you look at where Columbus sailed, right there, the islands. But then Vespucci, they say he's the one who discovered South America, or Amerigo, America, very, very similar spelling, very close. So that's where the names kind of get. And so people were saying he's the one who discovered it, or rediscovered it, or discovered it for Europe, however you want to say it. Was wrong because Columbus did it earlier. However, as we know, once the name sticks, once something gets in people's brains and it starts going everywhere, it sticks. It stays there. It's not changing. So Amerigo Vespucci goes down in history with his name still remaining on North and South America continents. Vasco da Gama. He's the one who's like, I don't want to sail that far west. That much open water? No. Now, of course, did he say those words? I don't know. But I would agree with him. I don't want to be in the wide open water. I want to be able to see land, or at least be able to, if something happens on the ship, sail to land or swim to land. So Vasco da Gama was like, Africa ends. We can just loop around, get to India, and trade that route. And so he was like, east, not west. And in 1497 to 1499, 1502 and 1503 and 1520, he made those voyages. The first one going around Cape Horn for the very first time. So he is the one who leaves Portugal. So Spain and Portugal back and forth. Portugal doesn't go west. They stay in the east. So another reason why that treaty makes sense, or not, it doesn't make the sense, the treaty being brought up again. And he sails to the Cape Verde Islands and sails down and around and back and forth. Now, one of the reasons, other than him making that amazing journey, Christianity versus Muslim. The Crusades happened a couple centuries earlier. The relationship between the two religions, not good. One of the reasons why they wanted to go around that trade or a sea route is to get away from the Muslim faith, so that, or Portugal, and especially Portugal and Spain, was so that they didn't have to trade with them. Like I said, Christianity versus Muslim, not on good terms right now. Tension's very high, not good for trade there. And you can see the zigzags that he took there thanks to some of those disagreements, some of those not so good vibes back and forth. And with that trade route established, it allowed Christian Portugal of the Christian faith, to avoid the Muslim religion. It allowed them to open up a different type of trade route. And so, like we said on slide 1, money drives everything. And these countries wanted the money, but they also wanted to make sure the people they didn't want to have money did not have that money. And you can see that back and forth forever and ever. Ferdinand Magellan, he kind of got some renewed claim in the Uncharted movie with Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. Great movie, in my opinion. But Ferdinand Magellan lived from 1480 to 1521. He goes down in history as the first man to circumnavigate the globe, but in fact, he did not. It was Juan Sebastian del Cano who actually journeyed all the way around, but it was Ferdinand Magellan who was the original captain, the dude who got it all started. So he worked for Portugal early in his career, but the country would not fund his trip. He was like, we can go all the way around. We still hadn't done that. And he's like, we can do it. Let's go. He had that idea of, this is my destiny. This is what money can be made. And let's be real, rivalries are everything. People are always going to judge people based on anything and everything, especially if there's a rivalry there. And the big one for Spain was a Portuguese guy leading a Spanish expedition. How in the world is that going to go? Well, it went all over the place. Let's be real. But for him, they finally agreed to it and they gave him 5 ships: the Trinidad, San Antonio, Concepcion, Victoria, and Santiago. The Strait of Magellan at the bottom of South America is named after him. It's that place that connects the Atlantic to the Pacific, just south of South America. He's that one who took the journey and went to the Pacific. Right? Think about how amazing that would have been to be on that crew, to be there where they sail down what's they kind of know. And then they all of a sudden get into the giant Pacific waters of, we don't know what's on this side. We haven't had those conversations with the people yet. The conquistadors haven't explored. There's that wide open new water. What are we going to find another island before we have to resupply? Well, in 1520, they entered the Pacific Ocean with just 3 ships. Sailing is not easy, especially when you're doing brand new sailing. They lost 2 of the ships. And they sail across that Pacific Ocean where they lose some more and they kind of get all over the place, and they finally land in the Philippines. And Ferdinand Magellan inserts himself in some local disputes and he gets killed. So he makes it all the way from Spain, all the way around, going west, not east, going west to the Philippines, crossing the Atlantic, crossing the Pacific, and he just has the Indian Ocean and down and up Africa until he's home, but he does not make it. The journey is finished by, like I said earlier, Juan Sebastian del Cano, and it was only the ship Victoria that finished the journey. When they pulled into port, the men were very weak, but the boat was loaded with spices. They brought home what the king and queen wanted: money, opportunity, trade, the fame and fortune that comes with, we paid for that first all the way around the globe trip. You can see he set sails August 10th, 1519, 5 ships. He discovers the Strait of Magellan, which you can see in this picture right there, just weaving through everything right there, all those little islands, trying to find that right passage to make sure when they pop out on this side, they have a proper journey. And they go up August 27th, 1521. He is killed by islanders. And then 1 ship, 18 survivors. So let's just say it takes 18 to man a ship. 18 times 5 is 94, 90, 90. Yep. 90 people. So if only 18 were on each ship, 1/5 return, but could have been more. Ferdinand Magellan looking very majestic in that picture. He gets a lot of credit for circumnavigating the globe, but he never actually did. You cannot talk about the age of exploration without talking about the conquistadors of Spain: Hernan Cortez, Francisco Pizarro, and Juan Ponce de Leon. Those 3 really shook up the New World. They're the ones who gave Spain the gold, the money. They're the ones who really did not do nice things to the natives there. So Cortez first sails to the New World in 1504 and starts conquering the islands. All right, he went there to conquer islands. It was already discovered or discovered for Europe. And so now Spain's like, we want the territory. Because remember, at this time, land equals power. Power equals money. So he is conquering islands all around the Caribbean. Then he hops over to Mexico in 1519 and conquers the Aztec. So he's the one who kind of breaks way into Mexico. Francisco Pizarro, he joined the New World in 1502. He didn't want to settle down. He went there. He's like, I don't want to just sit here. Don't want to be on a farm. I don't want to be in a government position. He wanted to explore, and he goes all around the areas. And in 1530, he goes to Colombia and starts to enter the Inca area, conquering them and starting the city of Lima. So now the Spanish routes are not only going west and north, they're going south into South America as well. And then Ponce de Leon, Spain wanted gold and encouraged him to explore. So he was over in the New World, and they're like, dude, we need money. And he's like, I got you. And he checks out Puerto Rico, Cuba, Florida, and many, many more. But he's probably one of the famous ones to be connected with the Fountain of Youth. Ponce de Leon sailed to find the mythical, like forever juice, Fountain of Youth. Now, looking at these conquistadors, like I said, their reputations have ebbed and flowed, gone up, gone down, based on how people have viewed the conquering and just straight up murdering a lot of natives. But what they did do is expand the map for Europeans. So if we look at it at that sense, there is that historical additive to it. Now, the amount of murders that they probably committed, not good at all. So we've talked about Spain and Portugal. They're the ones who really set the marks. So what about the other people? And plus, with Spain and Portugal operating basically in the southern part of this, it left the north. The Northwest Passage. That is what we were looking for. That is what we were trying to find. And we, as in the English, the French, and the Dutch, they're the ones that are like, wait a second. Going below South America is a very long trip. It is. You got to go all the way from north, all the way down south, and it's very, very dangerous. So not friendly to the people. Jacques Cartier, Sir Francis Drake, Sir Martin Frobisher, Captain James Cook, all tried and failed. And many, many, many more are looking for it. They're trying to decide, okay, if we can't go south, let's go north. There's got to be a quick, easy way to go all the way around the globe, and it's that north. Now, what they forgot is all the ice. It's just, it broke him down. Henry Hudson is the one who discovers Hudson Bay. That's what it's named after. He's the one who kind of sits it up there for his country. And he does that in 1611, but he still failed because he goes all the way there and they're like, we did it. We did it. Oh, no, this is land that we don't know. Because the Hudson Bay, if you look at it on a map, is huge. So that means in real life, it's huge. And so time and time again, they tried and failed, tried and failed, tried and failed. Now, in those failed attempts, they were able to set up colonies. They were able to set up settlements in Canada and North America that becomes the places that we've seen, discovered, talked about today. In 1905, the trip was finally made through the ice, and they did it. They found it up until 1905. So 1492 to 1905. So if we do that math, almost or a little over 400 years, just constant failure trying to find a Northwest Passage. Now, did they always try in that beginning years? Not so much, but it was failure after failure until they finally were able to break through the ice, find that map. It leads, like I said, what does the Northwest Passage do? Yes, failure, but we learn from failures. Failures aren't always failures if we don't allow them to be. So England and France leads them to settling North America, setting up the world how we see it today. And this is, like I said, the Northwest Passage that you can see. You can see where Henry Hudson tried, and then all the ice in the islands and not finding it there, but going all the way up, going around the Victoria Island, going around Banks Island, and up and through and out to the Bering Sea. So, the age of exploration, this brand new, this beautiful, amazing time period. The age of discovery, they're trying to find things, conquering, not so much niceness with the natives, not always a good vibe, but when we look at the discoveries made for Europe, and it's the kind of discovery of how the world looks today. It's those first few dominoes, the first few things. Homework for this week. I want you to pick an explorer, pick an adventure, and pick an expedition, however you want to look at it. So it can be a person or an expedition. It's up to you, and become the expert on it. What took place? Why is that expedition so famous? Why is that explorer so famous? Why are they important? Why do we discover today? Why did you pick it? So, for your discussion posts, answer the question of, or insert your thought process on on the thing you discovered. So it's the explorer or the expedition, either one. You pick, you decide, you become the expert. Tell us all you know about it. Do that research, cite your sources, reply to 2 other people, asking them, looking at what their expedition was like. How does it compare to yours? And wrap it up nicely. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. But otherwise, have fun and good luck.